we need to think about and ask about collectively is culture, corporate culture, and power structures. Because it's not just about Charlie here. And Claire, multiple women brought this up to the one person who ran Charlie's business, Yvette Vega. And Yvette did put out a statement, and she said, I think I have it here. She said, I should have stood up for them. I failed. It is crushing. I deeply regret not helping them. Now, two things. It is stunning when you look at this, because when I think about Mark Halperin and ABC or other people, I didn't see other executives step up and say, well, all we heard at the Weinstein Company, well, we didn't see those complaints. Clearly, there were some bad cultures that allowed really bad behavior. So Yvette Vega has come forward now, and I give her credit for that. That's very hard. But what kind of environment? I mean, when she sends an email and says, listen, I know exactly who Charlie is, what is that saying?
Well, I mean, two things. You're right. She's at least coming forward and taking some responsibility, but I think she's also in this unbelievably difficult situation. They're in a small company. There's no HR department. The only person she's going to take this up with is Charlie. What's she going to say to him? Charlie, you're fired. So, I mean, I think there needs to be processes, even in small companies. I hear from people at law firms where the partners are older and experienced and most of the assistants are junior, that there isn't any place to report at these very small kind of family partnerships either. So that's a common problem with this sex harassment issue. Who do you go to?
Okay, but at big companies or government or college campuses, is there anyone to go to? At the end of the day, people all work for big business. When you think about HR at companies, they appear to be, we're the in-house team to help you, but they're not. Who's there to help victims?
That's getting better, but it's a long way to go. I have a really close friend who was a close friend, who was the head of a small liberal arts college, and there was a terrible sexual incident, and I went after them publicly, and the guy called me up because he's a friend and said, why didn't you call me privately first? And I said, because if I do that, nothing happens. And so that's what the real problem is. The problem is HR departments are partly for the employees and partly to cover their butts for the whole corporation. And that is a major problem. It's not just small companies like Charlie Rose. It's big companies do this.
Can I jump in?
And universities have gotten away with this until now.
Yes, absolutely. I think there's like a second problem when you have this situation where these women are faced with, do I accept the invitation or do I say no? There are some women who say no, and there are some women who say yes. And the women who say no often watch the women who accepted the Faustian bargain go up the career ladder. And I think that's a double...
And it's a really important point.
All of the women are playing on a field where all the rules have been set by powerful men. So whether you choose to take the invitation for personal time with Charlie, which is how Yvette put it in an email to one of the women that we wrote about, or whether you don't, you're still playing on a ground where they're setting the terms and they're deciding who's valuable. And if there is a complaint, who gets moved? Is it the star who gets moved, or is it the junior person?
Right. All right, then I want to read something that Jon Stewart said, or maybe do we have a clip of it? We do. I want to share this because Jon Stewart did an interview with Howard Stern that struck me where he was talking about Louis C.K. Take a look.
The real part that I criticize myself on is what would I have done if I actually had known?
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
My feeling is, and I'm trying to be as honest with myself as I can, I would not have done something.
So this stands out because this is really honest. Jon Stewart said, I wouldn't have done anything. And later he says, I wouldn't have done anything, and that's what disturbs me.
Yeah.
And my former partner from Deutsche Bank, I spent 15 years in investment banking on a trading floor. My former partner saw that and called me on the phone. And he said, Steph, I thought about all the garbage that you willingly put up with, and we all stood by because you wanted to win and we wanted to win, and it was what it was. And we allowed that to happen, and so did Jon Stewart, and so did all of us.
Can I say, Stephanie, no men would go on the record for our piece. And these included men who were confided in the time. Look at the piece. There are no men quoted in the piece besides Charlie's statement. We asked them to because the women told us, we're putting our names on it would really help. And as a reporter, you always want everybody on the record. Men who were told, who were the boyfriends or the husbands, some of them still to this day, male producers who witnessed this, some of them weren't even willing to speak, and the ones who were did not want their name in the piece.
I mean, look at Quentin Tarantino, who made every single one of his movies in Miramax, and He knew. He knew to some degree. And Yvette knew, too. This points to something. I mean, HR departments are oftentimes corporate defense. I mean, they use the same exact words, so it's not necessarily there for people. But there also has to be a line of just individual morality here. When someone comes to you with this kind of thing, you have, from a moral standpoint, you got to do something. Yes, Yvette Vega is sending out those statements, and I'm glad that she is. It's better than she didn't. But I'm not glad of how she behaved all the way up and to that point. I think we're in a good place now in terms of we're beginning to have a conversation about that. What do you do in that moment? But we're not in a good place yet in terms of we haven't seen this come out in Wall Street. We haven't seen this come out in professional athletics. We haven't seen this come out in some areas where we know it's going to be
But
there.
is the issue star power? When there is a superstar among us, everyone accommodates
There are
them.
two issues.
So on Wall Street, if a guy is awful, it's allowed until he stops making money. And as soon as he starts losing money, he gets shot and sent out back. And when we look at whether we're talking Bill O'Reilly or Bill Clinton or Charlie Rose, you've got superstars and people accommodate it and say, well, maybe they're womanizers, maybe they're leches, maybe that's just who they are.
And Charlie Rose is at the end of his career.
But I mean, I think Charlie Rose is, I mean, they gave him CBS this morning. I think his career has been on an ascent in the last few years. So I think there was a lot to lose in these women's.
I mean, it shakes up the morning show race. If Charlie is fired, he's suspended right now. What happens to that show? I think that's a kind of interesting question too. What happens in the ratings?
I think those are pretty strong women, and they'll be fine.
So there's two things going on here. One is the superstar stuff. Exactly so. It's about money. That's why people shut up. It's about even the women who say yes. It's about their careers. They have kids at home. Some of them are single. This is a tough choice, right? I mean, it's an unpleasant thing that most men never have to go through. But the other issue is I think we're renegotiating in a very serious way gender roles in this country. And it's been going on for a while. Now it's blown up. Let me give you an example. There is a majority of women in the classes of the top medical schools and law schools in every top medical and law schools class in the country. That is new. So women are actually achieving more power, which finally puts them in a position of saying, wait a minute, what is this? What is this? Just as Africans Americans achieved more power when they were allowed to vote and when they had the first black president, what is this? We're not going back. And I think there's a lot of that going on. This is a major societal issue. I think we got a long way to go, but I think the roof is off the boil and it's going to change, but it's not going to be easy. We're just at the beginning.
Howard, here's where I want you to be right, but I don't see that to be the case. We can talk about all the women in law school, but look who the president is appointing to be U.S. attorneys and to be judges. It's white men.
Yes, but that's because this particular president is actually galvanizing women in many ways to report this kind of stuff because he's a throwback to the 1940s.
And after the financial crisis, we said, wow, heads are finally going to roll at the tops of investment banks, and these coveted seats are going to be open. Now you're going to see women on top. And you know what we saw? A clampdown. We saw those men protect themselves and protect one another. And we're at risk right now. We're at risk. We already hear this narrative that what if we suddenly see men in power say, oh, if I look at a woman cross-eyed, I could get in trouble.
They
Don't
will
want to
say
have them in the
and
mix.
they are saying
so often
that.
from everybody. All the guys I talk to, oh yeah, we've had enough of this now. This is crazy. All these allegations, they can't all be true. And it's kind of weakening, like the fire. I feel like of the tornado of the story is.
Roy Moore has to lose.
But wait a second, too. I mean, as it stands in politics, we all have to check ourselves. There are people right now saying who came out strong on Al Franken on day one, and now they're saying, you know what, he may be a butt-grabbing perv, but he's my butt-grabbing perv, and I wouldn't want to.
That's not allowed. You can't. We can't have that. I'm
saying.
Do that.
Michelle Goldberg in today's New York Times wrote that piece.
But we also have to take a long look at behavior that's acceptable today, that is not acceptable today, may have been acceptable 5, 10, or 20 years ago. And I'm not saying Al Franken is in the clear, but everyone has to take a long look. Because if we say it's a fireable offense for a butt grab, well, guess what? There are so many horrible things that have been done over the years, and we're going to have to take a long look at it. And maybe we should.
I agree with that. I think we should treat each case individually, but this is also a moment for media literacy, and a shout out to Erin on this. Not all these stories are reported the same, and not all what happens in these stories are the same. We shouldn't just blanketly say, oh, it's fake news, we don't believe it. Look at the way this is reported. Did they interview everybody that person talked to at the time? Did they say we interviewed 10 people who said nothing happened, and we interviewed 8 people who didn't? Know if it's good journalism or bad journalism. That's going to help you determine case by case.
Tell us why the story came out now. When you think about all these allegations and all the years it happened, it was in the 90s. Why do you think it took until today?
I first heard about the story in 2010 when I was working at Jezebel. I started to try to report it. I heard a few names of women who might have had interactions that they considered harassment or assault. I reached out to them and none of them wanted to talk. There is so much stigma, even now. I would invite anyone who thinks that this has all gone too far, and if you look cross-eyed at a woman, to listen to these women and understand how much they did not really want to talk to a reporter. I mean, what upside is it for them? For the next time someone Googles them, it's because their boss walked around naked in front of them. And so I would just say that even now, thanks to some great reporting, many more people are comfortable to talking to reporters. Our reporting stands on the shoulders of some of the other amazing work that's been done, starting with Harvey Weinstein on down, reporting on those allegations. Even now, though, note that not everyone in our story put their name to it. Many people say that they're still traumatized by what they experienced. It's a story that's years in the making, and it's by no means over.
Howard, I want you to be right. I want to believe that things are changing now. But how many years have we been going to diversity conferences? How many years have we been talking about how important this is? And you still got more guys named John and David running Fortune 500 companies than you do any women. Think about these women who it was so difficult for them to come forward.
Yeah.
And this is, I mean, when I read the stories of my boss masturbated in front of me, like, I'm sorry, Howard. I can't, that's a line. That's not, well, we all drank too much, somebody tried to kiss me at a bar. How are there companies that exist today that people don't feel like they could go to their boss? That's a clear line.
Well, this is a long haul. I mean, it's not going to stop, and as you both pointed out, until people start losing a lot of money.
And I think
that's what
That's
I mean,
a
this
great
is a
point.
long
Yeah.
haul. Look, just because I said I think it's getting better and it's going to change doesn't mean it's going to happen without anybody doing any work.
And I think there's a point to be made about the comment that Charlie Rose made in the statement that I thought it was consensual. And Harvey said the same thing. I thought these women reciprocated. And I think that speaks to the fact that these very powerful guys either don't hear no, or they don't pick up on
They're
a no.
self-delusional.
And
they're getting old.
Maybe there's a possibility that the women are not speaking up clearly enough or loudly enough. I mean,
I don't think that's what happened in this case at all. I think what happened in this case is they were terrified. They described that they were frozen. They didn't know what to do. And I think that there's so much when you are just a young person and you've got a wealthy, powerful man who can decide whether your career moves forward. With regards to the story that we reported on, I don't think that the problem was that they didn't say no clearly enough.
We also often convince ourselves that maybe it's not that bad. Maybe we asked for it. These are coveted jobs for a supremely talented guy. I do want to read this, though, because this is just in. According to TMZ, Charlie Rose was just asked about the women and what he would say about his, quote, wrongdoings. And Charlie said, quote, it is not wrongdoings. So, listen, this story, there's still a lot more that's going to be reported here. How wide do you think this is going to get?
It's enormous. I mean, it's pervasive. And it goes, actually, one of you made the point, maybe it was before we got on camera, that this is about sexualization of women. This goes back a long time. I remember when I was a kid, you know, you had a woman in a provocative pose and not too many clothes advertising cigarettes. I mean, this is about sexualization, objectification of women. And let's just say this is not just about women. It's also a power differential. Kevin Spacey is gay, and he was approaching young men on the who worked backstage at a theater in London, a very prominent theater in London.
It is still men doing all of it so far.
It's men doing all of it because it's the power differential.
Yeah, yeah.
It is men doing it, but the only victims are not just men.
Yes.
This is partly just about power. It's power and sex and the convolution of power and sex, which is an
But it's
age-old
such
problem.
an important point, because
It
whether you're
is.
talking about Harvey Weinstein or Louis C.K., imagine if they were standing there masturbating before fully dressed women. Do you know what was looking back at them? The face of horror. And that's what they were looking for in that moment. In all that you're reporting and all that you follow in media, were you surprised when the story broke?
no. I mean, mainly because of what you said. The ladies' man comments are pretty widely known about Charlie Rose. And then you ask, well, what does that really mean? You know, what are they getting up to behind the... I mean, what's amazing, it is shocking, even if you do kind of know people's reputations, that these giants of news or giants of Hollywood, people that you like Al Franken or Louis C.K. or Kevin Spacey even. I love watching these people on TV. And when they are felled by these accusations, you kind of listen to the women who are friends with them and you feel for them. Because there is this thing where you like these people and you respect them, and then you find out that they're monsters and they've done these terrible things, and then you have this split feeling. And I think Gayle King's comments this morning, she spoke to that point.
And she said, she's completely split in her emotions, a woman so close to Charlie. But maybe this is a moment. Maybe this is a moment for Charlie or the industry to not just say, I'm sorry, but to do something. You know, you've said there's dozens more women coming forward. It sounds like your reporting isn't done.
It's not done at all.
Really?
Yep.
Without divulging anything,
I can't say anything until it reaches the publication standards of the Washington Post. We're continuing reporting on it.
We're going to continue to cover it. Okie doke. Thank you all. What a conversation.